Hey everyone, it's Simone. I'm here with Bella Crystal, and we're here for another soul conversation. Today we're going to be talking to the seven, and we thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate everyone who has been joining us and commenting and asking questions. You have been amazing co creators and have brought depth to our soul conversations. Bella, if people are joining us during the call or the live or afterwards, how can they participate?
Yeah, so we are going into, you could say, the soul consciousness of Gene Key 7 and Gate 7, and we are bringing in a new way to kind of get the transmission through us and speak to the archetype of the Gene Keys and the gates. So we love to have you. I often, I do my best to come up with questions and see how I can interact with the archetype. But I'd love when you come on, and especially those of you that have the 7 in your human design chart or your Gene Key profile, because that gives much more depth to it, and all the more various the questions are, the more I feel like comes through. So this is a very, I would say it's a spirit way. It's a right brain creative way of working with and integrating the wisdom of the gene keys and of human design.
Beautiful.
And of course, if you like it, share it or tag people. Or this is really co-creation, and I can feel it. This is why we decided to go live with it, because when we have the group aura, then it becomes so much better, so much more valuable than just you and me kind of having a conversation between us, Simone.
Mm-hmm. And we've noticed that people who are live with us, they often participate and have comments or questions. And if you are watching the replay, it's not over. You can still co create with us. And when you comment, it literally puts you in at the moment of the transmission that you joined or you commented. So please, whether you're watching the replay or you're live with us, feel free to co-create. And yes, we do love it when you share. So thank you so much. Are we ready?
Yeah, I'm super ready.
All right. So let's see what the seven has to say. Hmm. The seven shows up as a bunch of things at once. I saw a swirling disc, and it felt like all of this activity, and almost like the central point of activity. And there's part of it is a celebration, and part of it is working. It seems like it's showing up as a energy where it's unified whole, where everything is integrated and everything knows its part or responsibility. And um, there's also fun in this energy that everything has its place, if you will. And I asked her what it would like for us to know. And it says that it would like for us to know that there is fun and joy in the moving forward. And there's one part of this image that I didn't quite capture, and it looks like almost like a sea. A sea urchin. It has like little spikes, and he said that the seven says it was important to stop to get that. So I don't know why. And then as it starts moving forward, it's almost like a transformer. As it's moving forward, it's almost unpacking what it needs as it moves forward as a system, if you will. And it has feelers that are feeling out ahead of the unit. So there's something going ahead of the unit testing the ground, seeing what the energy is, feeling things out, and it feeds that information back, and then things shift because of that, and it rearranges itself again, and it opens up more when it has that information from um, what's ahead integrated. And it's like as it moves forward, it never leaves the past behind, in the sense that it's an awareness that what's happened is always informing the whole environment. And it uses the word inform, not affect. So there's an awareness, and there's awareness. And it's not like the past adversely affects it, but it's like there's always this awareness of what land, what ground has just been covered. And there seems to be this balancing between what has been past, where the journey has taken this unit, and where the journey is going. And everything is constantly reorganizing based on all of the information that's coming in. And then now it showed me a celebration. It's like a celebration of um, the fine inner workings of the whole system. And it wants me to note that there's no judgment in the awareness of where the journey has traversed, and there's no judgment about what's coming up. It's all just information that's integrated to reorganize and readjust and repurpose, so that flow in each moment is at its best configuration, if you will, its best organization, if you will. And that without the judgment, new possibilities, as the information is being taken in, it's like new information comes through, so that you might have new insights or new awarenesses, new solutions, innovation can occur. So it's like the more there's a neutral understanding of the data, if you will, of the journey, of the experience, of what your strengths are, of everything, as if there's just awareness of it, all of that can be integrated and reconfigured in innovative and surprising ways. And we have the awareness to actually see the innovation when judgment is neutralized. And it says that this is one of the biggest gifts that it can bring us at this time. And as it's talking, there's through this whole journey of me watching these pictures, there's action, there's movement, but there's also a peacefulness to it. It's not, even though there's a lot of moving parts, it's not hectic. It's not, I don't feel anxiety as things recalibrate, if you will. There's a peacefulness, an ease to it. And the seven is kind of responding to my transmission and saying, that's because there's no judgment. There's no judgment. It's easy to recalibrate and reintegrate and bloom, if you will, innovate when there's a neutralness about it's not right, it's not wrong, it simply is. And that neutralness creates the peace within all the movement. I'm asking, is there something else And so that's let's engage right now. So what would you like to ask the seven?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody watches has Gene Key 7 in their chart, feel like you can let us know in the comments or also ask questions. For me, this is my purpose. And my life's work is the second Gene Key, which is orienting all the time. So for me, a lot of what you said now, I thought this was the second Gene Key of orienting, and I've always been open to embrace the change and being very yin in that sense. And now I feel like maybe this is kind of what comes from the purpose and what emerges up through the actual, pathway of individuation through the hologenetic profile. And here we have a leadership that is rooted in the G center, and it's the role of the self. It's knowing who I am, knowing where we're going, the direction, and knowing what love is. And when you have that, you are at ease with everything that can go on the outside, everything that can shift and change. And there's no really judgment, because this is an identity gate somehow. It's a Sphinx gate, so it's not so concerned about. It's more like, yeah, what is? It's not if it's right or wrong, because that's what we have to work with. We go to the future with whatever is, right? So I feel like I'm amazed the way that it came through. And I mean, my question is almost like, how do the Sphinx, that cross that has to do with this one, like how is that connected? So that would be Jinky 2, Jinky 1, Jinky 13. The 13 is the past, Jinky 1 is creativity, Jinky 2 is that feminine orienting. Like that's but that's kind of personal, but that's what I'm curious about if I get to ask.
Well, what it showed me is that it opens up. So imagine it just, there's more expansiveness. So if the energetic unit I was looking at is, say, about this big, in a circle, it was kind of an ovally, then it just got bigger. And so there's an expansion, there's more capacity, if you will, with all of that connection. With the Sphinx, it says there's more insight. And that insight is, when we first saw the image, and it was like some feelers went out and were ahead, like almost feeling out what's coming in the future. Imagine that becomes multidimensional, and it's almost like viewing from the eyes of a hawk, or where you have really sharp vision from up above. And the different perspective from on the ground to up above it, you really open up. You get the big picture, as well as the details, as well as what's in between. So with the influence of the Sphinx, that's what it's showing me, that there's even a broader view. And when you can have that perception, that awareness of where you're going, the possibilities are even more infinite. Mm-hmm. And so that it's really even more important to be in that neutral space of awareness, because you have the capacity to. So think about it. If you were in the neutral space and you had the awareness of where your journey had been, you have these feelers going out and feeling, what's out there, so that you can reconfigure to be in the most innovative place, using your system as dynamically and with integrity as possible. So then imagine that exponentializes with the influence of the Sphinx. So, it's really kind of, it's not just squared, it's almost like that to the infinite degree of capacity, awareness, innovation that can occur with the influence of the Sphinx.
Mm-hmm. And I feel
so much opens up.
Yeah, and I feel like now I kind of see the rave mandala in front of me, and I see the combinations of rave mandala, or we can speak activation sequence. How is the makeup when you have the 7? So the 7 is always going with a 13. That's the opposite side of the mandala. So 7 and 13, 7 is looking forward direction, 13 is listening to the past. And in a high frequency, sees everything with optimism, although there has been dark times. So these are always together. And the other side, or the other part of the cross, is then going to be either the 1 and the 2, which is the yin and the yang, or it's going to be the 43 and the 23, which is the channel between the throat and the ajna, and it's about simplifying complex things, and it's about actually getting insights, the kind of like when the penny drops. So I'm wondering, maybe we do want to say something about what's the difference with the cross when we have the 23 and the 43. What kind of potential lays in the cross that has the 7 to 13 together with the 23 of simplicity and the 43 of insight. But there's also the complexity and the deafness in the low frequency.
Well, when you saw the 23 and what was it, 23 and 40, 43, it was like the focus was on the details. So I got really like focused on the details. Like the vision of the hawk went right down to the details. And as opposed to looking from, the vision of the hawk and seeing it all. And there's a real strength and power to understanding the details. When you know the intricate workings of something, you can take apart the watch, if you will, if you know what all the little gears do. Whereas from a broader view, you might design the watch instead of, have work with the inner workings of the watch. So they're using the seven's using, well, they're all talking. So they're using the metaphor of a watch and the internal workings as opposed to the big view. And both have power and strength. Both have purpose. It's important to understand for some of us those internal workings, and it's important for others to have that big that view from way up. That's
It's so interesting, Simone, because you know my mother too. So we have the same 7 and 13, but she has the 23 and the 43, and I have the 1 and the 2. And it's really, if you would describe us, sometimes I'm like, why the details? Like, she's like, what did you exactly write there? What was that? And I'm like, but I'm telling you about like the whole, the title of the whole thing. But for her, it's so important. And she was telling me today, be careful, when you listen to like the conspiracy theory, and when you listen to like, be careful when you listen. And like, that's kind of the last thing. I'm like, I'm not careful. I just take it in everything. And then there's an inner guidance from the 7, because for me, the 7 is guidance. And in the I Ching, it's a lot about being the army and you need to have the army on your side in order to be able to lead. For me, what I kind of always put like in front of the 7 is inner guidance. And I see that's in my mom's life, like really when she comes into empowerment. And for me too, it wasn't until I was starting to listen to my inner guidance that I was even grounded in my purpose. Before that, spirit in the 6th line could not come through. So I'm wondering if we could speak about inner purpose and like geometrically what that means and what that means for the direction into the future.
When you ask about inner purpose, it's almost like I'm seeing the rave mandala inside of people. But it's not just going one direction. It's almost like a starburst, and and it spins. So the first thing that the 7 says, as I'm watching inside the 7, the 7 now is looking like a human body. Mm-hmm. And inside the 7, the Rave Mandala is almost an orb, and it's spinning in all different kinds of ways. And it's showing that, and it's in the heart, the mandala is in the heart space. And the 7 says it's important to know the truth of who you are and what's important to you. Because for some people, it's going to be the details. And for some people, it's going to be the big picture. And for some people, it's going to be both. They want to know the details and they want the big picture. Maybe one is weighted more than the other. And if you're a big picture person, it's like don't force yourself into the details.
Mhm.
Know the truth of who you are. Know why what's important to you is important to you. And don't allow other, like if you're a big if you're the big, the overview person, don't want people who really need the details to make you feel wrong that you need the big picture. And vice versa, don't make people who need the details to be wrong. Have a compassion and understanding, and maybe say to them, oh, I get that you really need the details and it's so important that you have that, and I'm glad that you do, and I'm a big picture person, so I need the overview. And to realize that each being brings a tone, a gift. So I understand a little bit more of why it was showing me that orb with the mandala spinning in all the different ways, because there are going to be people who need the details, and why and the way that works um, is going to be slightly different than why somebody else needs the detail or somebody else needs the details. So now that opening image, that kind of constellation that I saw reorganizing itself, now I kind of understand it even more with the detail of the mandala in the heart space and the because we all have, slightly variations of design with the sphinx of affecting, and the different crosses affecting. And so the seven is saying you'd be hard pressed to find anybody who is exactly the same.
Mhm.
And so respect that what information is needed. Their wheels are, all of those, the complexity of the mandala spinning. How many different ways can we look through the looking glass of the mandala? It's infinite almost. So to have compassion for others and for yourself, and to not make yourself wrong or not make other people wrong, because it really is. Now they're showing it to me in something that I absolutely adore, which is I've had fascinations with kaleidoscope. The kaleidoscope where you turn the little looking glass and all the crystals move, and that's what it's showing me. The seven is showing me the things that reorganize. It's different for every single person who's looking through this kaleidoscope, and they're looking through the kaleidoscope of their own design. And so it's really important for us to value each other in our own designs, and to understand how we look forward and recap the past, and what level of, in a sense, discrimination, because it's using the word discrimination in view of the idea of perception and judgment. So depending on what level of discrimination the person who's looking has, and there's so much to be considered, but the real rejoicing is when we hold each other in what we bring to the table. So they're showing me, like, imagine a bunch of constellations that are constantly reorganizing themselves come together. And when you have maximized that, or optimized rather, when you've optimized your system in the way you gather information and integrate it and innovate and develop and reconsider. Now imagine a bunch of different constellations come in, and they're all doing this, and they're all open to each other, and it's like, oh, I'm reconfiguring, oh, you got that information, oh, well, now I can use that, now I can use that. So it just helps each other, and the collective to evolve and expand and grow and recalculate and reintegrate.
Mhm.
I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, I will go instead of going down. Can you hear me twice now?
Hmm.
Does it echo?
Not right now.
Okay. So I wanted to go up the frequency to the city today. Usually we go down to the, I ask practical questions about the shadow, but I feel like the way it's opening up is wondering about virtue. What does it mean? And what does it mean to be a virtuous leader? Because here we have the identity of the alpha, of the leader from the G center. What does that look like? And what does that look like as guiding us into the future?
Hmm. The first word that the seven showed me was integrity within the self. Integrity within the self. So he says, think about that. It's going to be different for every person. Virtue is not static. You know, it's really what is your integrity in your own design, and how do you live that? That's your virtue. That's your, you know, so integrity. And it also flashed me the word creativity, which is an interesting word to come up in a conversation about virtue, right? Um, well, it's showing me that where each being is in terms of integrity with the self. Um, that's the place each person creates from. That's the place from which each person sees beauty and love from. That's the access point. So it's like everything unfolds from the integrity of your integrity within yourself, within your design, where you are at the shadow gift or Siddhic frequency. It's not that it matters. It's just that to have an to understand where that is and be in integrity with it. And as the seven says that, it reminds me of the first part of the transmission where it was talking about no, you know, there's an awareness of what ground you covered, and there's an awareness of what ground you're going to cover, and don't have judgment. And it's the same thing. It's like know where you are, know what your design is, know where you're operating within that design, and have integrity with that. And that's where that's the blooming of virtue within you.
It's so interesting, Simone, because I'm thinking, I have been orienting a lot in my life with the two and the seven, I guess both of them. And a little bit like the kaleidoscope, when you see kind of you look at it, and then there are many of the same kind of, you have these formations that are maybe, they go out, and that's what I felt. And we have the shadow division here. So somehow I can see that when I was in so many places, or even if you just say Europe and the US, for example, like everything that I created, like there's a flower in here, there's a flower in here, but somehow in some sense is that division, because you are not just anchored in one place at the same time. And now that I've had to anchor where I am, it's like it's a different geometry of the kaleidoscope when I look in it, because it's basically one creation that gets nurtured instead of these different clusters. And there is just, and I can even feel maybe it wasn't the highest virtue of being divided into different creations at the same time. Like that's kind of, what I'm feeling in myself and in my own creation.
Mm-hmm. So it's just the awareness of the place you were in. So not to have judgment, but to just use your awareness to. It's almost like a data point, and what you notice now, and where does each one of those, when you bring that into your field, and you could ask yourself, where is the integrity here? What is the integrity? Then you'll know, without judgment. And you might be, it's almost like they're showing me a sliding scale between shadow, gift, and city over the human design chart. So it's like, imagine that every gate in your human design has a little lever, like a little dimming switch. And so it's not just an awareness of all the 64 gates, but then within each one, where was the dimmer switch? Because what the seven is saying, you would find in toto that not every demo speech was all the way up or on gift or in shadow, that it was a complex of 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 places, like if you were going to plot it out, the little, it would be all over, you were at different places in your design.
Mm-hmm. So I want to ask if we have any questions. I do see comments, but if we have any questions, I think it's a good time to write them in the comments. And I did have a question, but I don't remember. So, is there anything else, Simone, that wants to come through?
uh let's see. Well, the seven's talking about, this is a joyful, like, recollection. It's a joyful, it's an interesting word, recollection, right? But it's what it's saying. It's a joyful recollection with us. And it shares with glee, like it's super excited, it shares with glee because it feels like in this transmission, we have the capacity to actually go in and polish our workings, our inner workings, polish our design, if you will, polish our inner workings, so that we can understand how we function, how we operate within our own design. And it says that that was such a gleeful sharing, and it just is really expressing gratitude for our willingness to look at ourselves and be the true leaders that we have inside of us, whatever that is. Because it's saying that there's leadership within each of us. Whether we're leading ourselves or leading collectives, there is the aspect of leadership, or it's like it's showing me DNA. For some of us it's turned on, and for some of us it's not turned on, but it's still there. And that, even if it's not turned on, it's still an energy within you that you can access, and that it was really happy to do this.
I think we lost Simone.
So, Bella, if that's all, we'll just say thank you to the seven, and I'm disconnecting from the seven, and we really appreciate you joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the transmission from the seven. Take
Bye.
care, everyone.